Hello, I'm A.D. Hobbs, and well, first things first, I better apologise. My Star Trek the Motion Picture review, only half of it came out, so to make up for that, I'm doing the second half now. And there are some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film, I recommend you see the film first before seeing this. Okay, so this is my review part 2, and it's going to continue from where I got up to. I got up to the bit when I was talking about Captain Decker, who's been temporarily demoted to Commander Decker. He can't understand why Starfleet would put Captain Kirk in charge of the Enterprise. And yeah, Decker keeps going on about how I am superior to Kirk. He keeps competing with him, saying I'm better than him, I'm superior. But when they get to the alien cloud, when they approach it, what's Decker's brilliant plan? His plan is not to enter the cloud at all. Well, that's a stupid idea. They have to enter. They must find a way to communicate. Otherwise, it might destroy Earth. So, yeah, Captain Kirk proves himself to be the better leader, yeah. So, although we get off on the wrong foot with Captain Kirk in the film, he redeems himself and he proves himself as a much better leader. Oh, yeah, a bit of nitpicking here. In the story, the only available starship is the Enterprise to intercept this alien cloud. But there's just one thing. This is an alien cloud. It can destroy anything. It's heading for Earth, and it might destroy Earth. Are you seriously telling me Starfleet didn't think this was important enough to send a spaceship that can work properly? Because the Enterprise can't quite work. The engines haven't quite been finished. They haven't been tested. A few bits and bobs that need putting right. Isn't this important enough to send a spaceship that's working fine? But there we are. Just go with it, yeah. And because it's an emergency, that's how Captain Kirk found a way to get command of a spaceship again, yeah. Again, oh yes, a bit of different visual aid now. This is an original action figure of Mr. Spock. This is official merchandise from 1979, an action figure of Mr. Spock. And it has the same 5-point articulation as Star Wars figures did, because that's what they were competing against at the time. Now yes, it's a good sculpt and everything. The only problem with this action figure is, here's his hand, but he can't hold anything. None of the Star Trek figures from 1979 could hold anything, and they didn't come with any accessories. No phasers, no tricorder, nothing. Well, that's silly if you're competing against Star Wars figures, because the Star Wars figures, almost all of them, had at least one accessory. So yes, that's a bit silly. And anyway, in 1977, Paramount were going to reboot Star Trek because they saw how popular it was, and they kept repeating the show in the 70s. So they needed a reboot, and in 1977 they started production on a totally new revamped Star Trek called Star Trek Phase 2. And it was going to have a Vulcan called Zon in it, because Leonard Nimoy refused to reprise his role as Mr. Spock. But Star Trek Phase 2, although they started production, it was never finished because of the movie Star Wars. To make more money, Paramount decided to make a big blockbuster movie instead. And they had a Vulcan character called Mr. Sonak, yeah, he was going to be the choice, but then, because Leonard Nimoy refused to play Spock, but then eventually, after lots and lots of persuading, he eventually agreed to reprise his role as Mr. Spock. And they assured him this would be the only Star Trek film, which we now know is not true, but at the time, when the movie was made, they thought it was just going to be the only one. So, in other words, the actor Leonard Nimoy didn't want to play Spock again at first, and in the story, in the movie, Spock is reluctant to rejoin Starfleet. He wants to stay on Vulcan, but because he's so curious about the alien cloud, yes, he rejoins the crew of the Enterprise. So that's mirrored of what was going on in real life. Yes, it was a real palaver getting all the original actors to be back in the film. And, oh yes, something else. We do have the character Christine, who played a nurse in the original 60s TV show. She has a brief role in Star Trek the Motion Picture. We see the blonde woman, the yeoman, working on the transporter. And we don't see her again. Well, she has a brief cameo in Star Trek 3 and a brief cameo in Star Trek 4, but that's about it. So we have the main 7 throughout all the original Star Trek movies, but Christine and Yeoman, we barely see them at all. And oh yes, next piece of visual aid, here it is. This is an audio tape. It's an audio tape of the book version of the storybook of the film Star Trek the Motion Picture. I didn't get this when it was brand new. I got it when I was about 10 years old. And although it's the movie was made in 1979, but I think this tape was released in the early 80s, yeah. And it's good for kids, yeah, because when I saw the movie when I was 10, there were some unanswered questions. But in this tape it says, "Is V'Ger the name of the captain of the alien starship?" No, V'Ger is the alien starship. It's a living machine. So that was good, that explained that, because it's not very clearly specified in the film. But any unanswered questions, if you're a child, the questions are answered in this tape version of the story. Not all the questions, but most of them are answered. Like, here's an unanswered question. When the Enterprise eventually, they get to go inside V'Ger, well, more specifically, right to the heart of the cloud, the main control bit, they convince it to let them give them access to the main part. And then we find out V'Ger's programming is learn all that is learnable. Now, to do that, he has to join with a human, absorb the energy of a human, and turn into a different life form, pure energy. There's just one thing, though. When V'Ger completes its programming and joins with a human, does V'Ger die and create a new life form, or is it still him? It's just a much more advanced version of him. It's not clearly specified. Does V'Ger die to create a new life form, like his baby or something? Or is it still him? It's the same person, just a much more advanced version of V'Ger. It's not clearly specified. Also, Decker and Ilea, when they're absorbed by V'Ger, are they dead? Or are they still alive, just inside the alien spaceship? It's not clearly specified, and it's open to interpretation. Or, as Captain Kirk says, Ilea and Decker, do not list them as casualties. List them as missing. Yeah, so it's not clearly specified. Anyway, did I enjoy Star Trek the Motion Picture? Well, at first I liked it, then I didn't like it, because it wasn't as good compared to the others, but then over the years I sort of warmed to it again. So I like Star Trek the Motion Picture because it's a one-off. If they'd have done more in the same style as this, I wouldn't have liked it, but it's okay because it's a one-off. It's an interesting experiment with the Star Trek franchise. You know, it's interesting to see the Star Trek legend from a different angle and a different style. But I'm pleased that they changed the style, because Star Trek the Motion Picture was very slow-paced. That's what it's criticised for. And in a way that's good, because the pace of action in Star Trek is meant to be slower than the pace of the Star Trek in Star Wars. But not quite as slow as that. No, they overdid it. They made it much too slow, so that it's more like 2001: A Space Odyssey, yeah. But they got the pace of the action just right in the sequels. So yeah, I'm pleased about that. Star Trek the Motion Picture, okay, as a one-off, but I wouldn't have liked it if they'd have done more films like this. And I assumed they always knew there was going to be a sequel. Nope, I was wrong. They did do sequels, obviously, but when the movie was originally made, they had no intention of doing sequels. So why does it say at the very end of the film, the human adventure is just beginning? Well, it doesn't say that because they thought there were going to be sequels. No, it says that because they mean the potential of humans in general is just beginning. Like, big spoiler here, the V'Ger, although it appears to be totally alien, it is in fact originally made by humans all along. That's the big twist. So the movie represents, yeah, the potential of humans, yeah. Anyway, yeah, good story, good about solving a puzzle, but I'm pleased to say that they did the other movies in a different style. So Star Trek the Motion Picture is okay, because it's a one-off. Okay, that's enough from me, and take care.